Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Psychic Goddess Erika, and today I just wanted to talk about the best way to get a reading. Before I jump into all that, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share if you enjoy my videos. So these are tips that I feel will help a lot of people out when it comes to how to go about getting a reading, your expectations of what a reading can give you. Now these are fully and completely my own personal view and perspective. Not everyone may or may not agree with me, and that's okay. But I have been doing this for over a decade, and so I've learned a lot over time, just in terms of even been on both sides of the scale. I've been a client and I've been the reader, so I've been on both sides. Now, one of the first tips that I can give you when it comes to the best way to get a reading is to be open-minded about the information that comes through. So what I mean by that is you know, even when, like, let's say you're asking, how does this person feel about me, right? You may have in your mind certain ideas of how you think the kind of answers should sound, like, oh, they feel like you are so attractive, but they're just so afraid to open up. They're afraid of relationships, so they hold back. Like, that may be an example of something that you feel like you should hear in terms of the response from the person that's giving you the reading. But it's really important to remember that every psychic has something different to offer. Every psychic will receive information in a different way. And so if you are asking, for example, what does so-and-so feel about me? And the psychic then says, they feel like career is their priority. They feel like they need to work on themselves, or they feel like they are not healed from the past. Because you have a certain idea of wanting it to be specifically about you, the thing is, when a psychic is asking source a question, asking spirit a question, and the responses do not pertain directly to you, most likely that means that the person you're asking about isn't spending a lot of emotional energy on you. So how they feel about you, just kind of in summary, is that yeah, exactly, it hurts. My dog, I don't know what she just did. So how they feel about you is probably like not much, you know what I mean? So you have to be open-minded about the information that comes through, because whatever information does come through is what source chose to give, in the way of that's being what you need to hear at this time. So, you know, you're not always going to get exactly what you think you should hear or want to hear in terms of a response. So be very open-minded about whatever information comes through, because source will determine what is in your highest good to hear. So, you know, and even still, like, even if it's like touching on something very minimum in terms of how they feel about you. Oh, they feel you're attractive, but they're focusing on the moment and they're going with the flow. That could very well just be the extent of what they feel about you. But a lot of the times clients will want more and look for more and want something deeper, but sometimes that deeper answer is not always there. Sometimes it really is just what it is, and that's the extent of it. Not saying that's always the case, but I see that a lot. So be very open-minded about the information that comes through, and in understanding that what comes through is often something that is more important in terms of what you need to hear. And, you know, your question is, a lot of the time it's answered in terms of how they feel about you. It's just not necessarily always exactly what you wanted to hear, or phrased how you thought it should be phrased, if that makes sense. So be open-minded about that. Another tip on the best way to get a psychic reading is to use it as a navigation tool for you to make your own choices. I do not recommend getting a psychic reading wanting the psychic reader to make the choices for you. That's not what we're here for. I do not recommend even trying to look too far out into time, or wanting your fortune told, because I can tell you right now, I am not a fortune teller. I do not, I'm not going to tell you your whole life story and exactly how it's going to play out and when, like, this is step by step of exactly how it's going to go, because that's not how energy works. If you go about a psychic reading in the way of using the information that comes through as a navigation tool for you to make your own choices, that's the best way to do it. Because to be psychic, one of the things that misunderstand is that they think we know everything. They think we see everything. That's often not the case. To be psychic, all that means is to intuitively see, and I'm using see in terms, there's different ways people have psychic ability. They could see, they could feel, they could hear, they could know, all the different clairs: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, etc. But it just means basically very enhanced intuition. It does not mean that we know exactly how things are going to go every step of the way. So if that is your expectation, that what we have to say is the end all be all, most of the time you're gonna end up being kind of disappointed. But it's also good news at the same time, because if you receive news that you don't necessarily want, you then know that you have the power to make a healthier choice for yourself, or a better choice for yourself, or to navigate it in a different way than the path that you are currently on. Because what I do as a reader, and I'm only speaking for myself, like, you will see, if you've seen any of my reviews or anything like that, I have a very high accuracy rating. And this is because I form my readings in a way of giving the client the power, which is where it should be. You have the power to navigate your own life, to make your own choices. I don't make the future happen for you. What I do is I can see where things are likely to be headed based upon where the current energy stands and the past momentum, the past patterns, the past momentum. I can see where things are likely to go based upon the path that you are on. But that does not mean the future is not set in stone. Energy is constantly changing. And for that reason, I personally prefer not to predict too far out in time. I prefer to predict within a year. Because if you think about it, think about the fact of how quickly things can change within 24 hours. Now think about the fact about how things can change so quickly, not quickly necessarily, but how drastically these can change within 6 months. Now think about how drastically things can change within a year, right? And so if you're coming to get a reading and you're wanting to know 5, 10, whatever amount of years out, that's kind of, it's not really helpful, or was like, it's not doing you much good, because truth be told, you're probably going to be still worried about the same thing. Not everybody's, in some cases, in a lot of cases actually, you're still probably going to be worried about the same thing tomorrow, or even a week from now. It's still going to be on your mind. So if you're worried, who cares at that point what's going to happen 5, 10 years out, if your focus needs to be getting yourself together today? You know what I mean? So I feel, just in my experience, that things tend to come out in a more accurate way, in a more clear way, if I keep the predictions to not going too far out in time, because this way it's easier to focus on your growth. This way it's easier to focus on your evolution. This way it's easier to focus on the step-by-step of how to get you to where you want to be, not necessarily want to be, where you deserve to be in your highest good and in a healthier way, because a lot of the times people want things that are bad for them. So this way we can focus on the journey that gets you there, because I believe the best way to know where your future is going is to create it yourself, to manifest it yourself. And I like to work with people along the way on that. Now, does that mean that I can predict where things are likely to go? Yes. And a lot of the time, it does end up being true. The good majority of the time. I don't think anybody's 100% accurate all of the time, even though I have had clients who their personal belief is that I have been that way for them. But I'm still human, So, and again, because you create your own reality. You manifest your own future. Your belief system, what you feel, the choices you make, your patterns, that is what is continuously creating your future, where it's headed over time. So if you look at getting a psychic reading instead of looking at it as like opening a book and this is the start of the story, the end of the story, and that's all it is, and you expect the psychic to be like, it's going to happen at this time and it's going to happen this way, and that's just, you know, and that it's guaranteed that it's going to go in that direction, whether it's what you want to hear or not, that's not a good way to approach getting a reading. And also, it's not a good way if a psychic is, in my opinion, giving you a reading in that fashion where it's like the fortune telling style, you know, without giving you the knowledge and understanding that you hold the power to create your future. I feel like that's kind of dangerous territory, you know what I mean? So and this is just my personal view. Again, I just want to make that clear. I don't want to I'm not judging anybody else's style. This is just what I see has worked for me and my clients in over a decade of doing this, and as well as studying the law of attraction and, you know, just life experience. Another tip on the best way to get a reading is to ask questions that make sense. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you are asking, when am I gonna get married? But you're single. Unless you are in a culture, and I do know there are cultures like this where there's arranged marriage, of course. So unless you're in a situation like that, like which most of us in the US where I am are not in that kind of a thing, unless that is your exception to the rule, then instead of asking when am I going to get married, it would make more sense to ask when am I going to start dating. Or if you're already dating and in a relationship, it would make more sense to ask, when is my partner going to propose? And not even necessarily when in certain cases, it's more in the lines of maybe you want to ask if it's to happen, and if so, when. Because there's so, again, it kind of goes back to all the change that could happen, and you kind of have to take life as it goes along. You can't expect to jump from start to finish when it comes to life progression. You know, life, there's still steps in between that have to happen. Another thing is, when I say questions have to make sense, is spirit, source, they communicate, they know what we mean when we ask it, but they're also, at least in my experience, and I can only speak for the spirit, how spirit communicates through me, it's very blunt, it's very matter of fact, right? So if you say, oh, do we have a future? You know, I get that question a lot. People ask, is there a future? Do we have a future? Most often spirit is going to be like, yeah, but it may or may not be the future you want, because unless something happens to one of you, not to be morbid, but there's probably going to be a future. It just, I know when people ask that, it's usually them trying to ask, oh, are we going to be together romantically or something like that. But even if you are not, even if it's in the process of the same old patterns of, you know, off and on toxic energy, to spirit, that is still a future. It's not the future you want, but because you are still choosing to stay, because you are still choosing to remain attached to the situation, and because you're not actively leaving it or taking the steps to move beyond it, yes, there's still a future there. It's just not the future you want. You know what I mean? So a better question to get a better direction, or to get the most out of the reading, would be to instead ask, where do you see this headed if I choose to stay? Right? Because if you say, do we have a future together? Again, unless something happens to one of you, then most likely, yes, you have a future together. It just may or may not be the future you want. It may or may not be the future you expect. I think spirit agrees with the loud noise outside. Another tip on the best way to get a psychic reading is to understand that time does not work time is relative. So when you're asking questions like, oh, will it be long term? Spirit doesn't see time like we see time. So, and on top of that, everybody has different definitions of what's long-term. Long-term to you could be 6 months to a year. Long-term to this person could be 5 to 10 years. So when you say, oh, is it going to be long-term? And then you also have to take into account that your reader is going to have their own interpretation of what that means. So like if you're asking me, is it going to be long term? Then you also have to consider, what do I consider to be long term? So questions like that, they're not really phrased in the best way, because again, that could mean so many different things, and time is relative with it being a man-made concept. So at the end of the day, what is it's more important to focus on is, again, the journey, the steps along the way to see where things may be headed, if that makes sense. And all of that is just another reason why I prefer to only read within a year's time and focusing only within a year's time, because anything further than that at this moment, it just doesn't really necessarily matter at this time, because the goal with the way that I read is to more so get you back to like the present as much as possible, and because the present is what is going to create your future. The present, in terms of the knowledge that you need to know right now today, is what is going to help you to navigate and again make the choices for yourself that lead you in the direction that is in your highest good. So that is why, again, I prefer to only keep it within a certain time frame when it comes to predicting, with understanding and knowing that energy is always changing. So it's like, if I predict something and I see it going in this direction, but you do the complete opposite, you consciously make the choice to do the complete opposite of what I, had suggested in order for the prediction to continue a certain way, well, then you just altered the path. Because again, future's not set in stone, energy is always changing, and you're constantly creating the reality around you. Another tip to get the best way to get a reading, or to get the best out of a reading, is to, I understand that a lot of people want to get readings when they're upset because you're feeling anxious and you want instant gratification. You want like certainty. And that's not how it works either. So a lot of the time, like, people will want to know that it's for sure going in this direction or not, so that they can then make a choice for themselves. But there's no guarantees with it, because energy is always changing, and you want the instant gratification to feel better. But that's just not how it works. So it's like, I'll give an example. If you are, let's say you're about to take a test for your career or something like that, and you want to know, well, am I going to pass it? Am I going to pass the test? Well, when looking into the energy, it kind of really depends on your mindset and how you choose to navigate it. So it's like, if I'm looking at it, there's no guarantee that yes or no for sure you're going to pass it. Now, I can see if the energy is looking really good, that I will tell that to you, that based upon what it looks like right now, it does look like it's leaning more towards a yes, but future's not set in stone. Or it's leaning more towards a no, but future's not set in stone. Now, if you take that, like I said, as a navigation tool to figure out what you want to do next with your choices, if you got the bad news, then what can you do to step it up so that that is not the result for you, and then you can shift it. If you got good news, well, then you're on a great path already, so try to continue in that vibration. But if you start to spiral into fear and doubt, or if you're psychic hopping and getting a whole bunch of different readings from a whole bunch of people, and now it's making you confused, well, now you just lowered your vibration, and now you are actively changing the results that I may or somebody else may have seen for you, because now you've let confusion and doubt come into the picture, and that's altering the future through the law of attraction. So I say all that to say that if you are just wanting instant gratification and you're approaching a reading in that way, that's not a good way to go about it. And again, taking it in a way as a navigation tool for the next steps and choices for you. I would also recommend trying to wait until your anxiety has subsided or calmed down a little bit before getting a reading too, because if if you are still extremely anxious, you're not going to receive the guidance or the information clearly. And if you're looking for that instant gratification, then a couple things could happen. Because most likely, when you're in that state of anxiety, and I'm only smiling, laughing because there was a time where I was this way before. If you get good news, you're not going to believe or really trust that good news because your anxiety is still too strong. You're still too upset. If you get bad news, well, then you are not going to receive, like, at least when I do my readings, if I have to give bad news, I will try my best to let you know kind of like why this is happening in such a way for you to learn a lesson or what the lesson is in it, so that you can see that there's better to come as a result of this whatever situation is not working out the way you hoped, right? But if you're so anxious and then you're so sad and so upset because you haven't let yourself kind of become at least as neutral as possible before getting the reading, then you're not going to hear all of that really important guidance to help you get something better within that process of the reading. So another tip is to try to wait till you calm down at least a little bit. I'm not saying you're going to be fully and completely okay, because a lot of the time people are getting readings in a moment of frustration or upset or fear or whatever it is. But try not to do it at your peak, because the other thing is, if you are a psychic empath like me, well then guess what happens? I'm feeling what you're feeling, and then it's hard to really clearly deliver in a certain way because we are feeding off each other's energy. Like, it's just being projected back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it can become challenging for the reader too, who is feeling your energy at that moment. So it's kind of like spiritual hygiene, right? It's kind of like if you know you're going to get a physical from a doctor, you're gonna want to shower first, right? You're not gonna just show up all smelly and or hopefully you wouldn't, because that way, if your reader is able to have a better experience themselves, they can receive the information more clearly to help you, if that makes sense. And I think my final tip for this video is going to be to do your research on the reader first, like reading reviews, whatever you need to do, because you want to make sure the reader is going to match your needs. Us as psychic readers, we are not one size fits all. We all have different talents. We all have different abilities. We have different ways of receiving information. So in the same way that you wouldn't go to the dentist if your nose is broken, or you wouldn't go to get your eyes looked at from the chiropractor, you're not going to go to one psychic for a certain need if that is not what they offer, if that is not their ability, if that is not their gift. Like, I'll give an example. You may have one psychic who is really good at tapping into understanding somebody else's emotions, and that is that's their strong suit, and they're clear about that. And then you may have one psychic who is a remote viewer, for example, which means that they can locate someone or something, like a missing persons or missing items. But if you ask them, how does so-and-so feel about me, they would be like, I don't know. Like, that's not their gift. You know what I mean? So psychics, do I feel like psychics can all develop their gifts to maybe have, be able to do a whole bunch of different things? Oh yes, for sure. I know I am continuously doing that with time, but I also know what my strong suits are, and I know things that I either have no interest in doing at all, or I know that that's something that I'm still working on, still developing. I feel like we can all grow our gifts, but you kind of have to just do your research. So it's like you same way, like you don't want to go to somebody who does remote viewing if you want a mediumship reading. You know what I mean? You don't want to go to a medium if you want an astrology reading, unless they specifically say that is one of the categories that they offer, that is one of their expertise. Like I said, a lot of people, including myself, offer a lot of different things, a lot of different services and different ways in how they receive information. But you want to be clear on making sure that psychic is the right fit for you in order to do that. And again, doing your research, reading reviews, word of mouth from people you trust, things like that are ways to go about it. And also, the last thing I kind of want to add on is to respect the psychic's process. Like for me, for example, a lot of the time I like to pull the cards on camera, just as a feel of authenticity, you know, because that's a way for me to tap in. It's a way for me to start channeling the energy through and getting in the moment with you for you to see. Could I do that off camera? Yes, but it is something I prefer to do. And you know, I don't need the cards. I know that for me, however, it's a way of channeling the energy much more quickly rather than sitting, trying to meditate, trying to receive the information. You know, I think that people misunderstand and think that psychic readings and tarot readings are something different, and they're not separate. I use the cards as a channeling tool for the energy, for the messages to start coming through. I don't need the cards. Do I enjoy them? Yes. Do they add an extra layer of visual aid for you? Yes. But they're not needed for me. Are there tarot readers that just are simply learning to read cards? Yeah, that's possible. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's separate things. Like I said, tarot readers can also be psychic. I've had clients come to me at times where they're like, I want a psychic reading and you're just a tarot reader. And I'm like, no, they're one and the same with me. You know what I mean? So respect your reader's process, whatever that is, because if for some reason you are someone who is completely like against tarot cards and you just want somebody to channel psychic messages, then knowing that even though I'm making it clear, I am channeling psychic messages in every single reading, including with cards. If you know that my process and my comfort level is to still work with cards because that is how I kind of get my energy flowing, then you have to respect that that is my process, and you can still either choose to book with me or not. If you're completely against it, then go somewhere else. But I mean, like, whatever your reader's process is, it's extremely frustrating, you know, to have someone try and control your process and try to control the reading how they want it. We can't flow that way in a healthy direction if, you know, it's so rigid. You know what I mean? Because every reader is different. Like I said, you have to trust their process, and their process is their process. So let your reader do their thing. So I hope that makes sense. Feel free to share any feedback about it in the comments below. So feel free to comment below, share your feedback with me, share this video with whoever you feel needs to hear it, receive it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.